Hey moms and dads, Dr. Scott, and I'm on here because I want to have a bit of a candid conversation. So I am scared to death of watching kids go on to ADHD meds because I know all too well what this can lead to. You know, if you're a mom and dad that is watching this video and you have a child that is on ADHD meds, or you're contemplating putting your child on ADHD meds, I want to implore you that you need to explore every alternative before going down this road, okay? I've had so many examples that are put in front of me over the course of the last year plus where I've seen examples of children that have moved down this pathway, that have gone onto the ADHD meds, and not only does it affect their behavior in the short term, but if you know anything about the way that these drugs work in the long term, is that children build up dependence and they oftentimes lead to them having to go on other drugs. But if you know anything about the way that we're seeing an escalation in drug abuse, that ADHD meds are the primary gateway that's leading kids towards the use of either other psychedelic meds or things like methamphetamines. And the reason being is that the process by which they use these medicines is they use a stimulant. So like Adderall, which is a class 2, the same thing that, thank you very much, Lacey. They're class 2 medicines, which are in the same category as is cocaine. They're stimulants, and their job is to stimulate the brain so much that it has a calming effect. The problem is that your body is a naturally adapting machine. Your liver will over time get used to the dosages and require more, because the body's job is to figure out how to best manage anything that's a toxic substance that's coming into the body and then clear it more efficiently and faster. So let's talk about why this matters, okay? So your child, if they get started on a med like that young, right, you'll notice that they will have an increasing adaptability to the medicines. They become less effective over time, and they'll have to move on to others. And so they'll bounce kids oftentimes from Adderall onto Abilify, onto Klonopin, back and forth to different meds to try and find the right formulation, okay? So this is a slippery slope, because there's always going to be some need for some type of a stimulant with your child if this is what they're dealing with. But is it really necessary? So let's just talk about the way that we look at these things, right? Because there's very much a perspective that's involved with this, right? So, you know, if you're watching my videos, you know that I'm a chiropractor. And part of the reason I value the perspective I'm given is because I have a chance to be more objective than a lot of other folks in healthcare. Because, you know, when you go to school to become a chiropractor, we don't do prescriptions. It's a choice that as a profession we stepped out of. And so it gives us the ability to look at pros and cons of medicines a little bit more objectively, because when we're taught about pharmaceuticals, we're taught about it from a perspective of we want to be as natural as we can to try and do everything we can to help the function of the body to work the way that it's intended to without the use of medicines. And so I know there are times when it is an absolute necessity, but I will tell you this, it is far more likely that if you do the right things to improve your child's function, that they can avoid going down those roads, right? So I see this stuff every day. I see kids who come in and moms and dads who are in complete desperation. They're being told by their doctors, they're being told by their teachers that their kids need something. And I get it. You know, your child has to be able to focus and function in school. They've got to be able to adapt to their life. But you know, if you've ever had a child that's been on these meds, or if you see the kids that are on these meds, that it can have an overcompensation effect on their mood and their behavior, where it really mutes them. I mean, I've seen some kids who come in here that are on their medicines, and based upon the time of day when they're taking their meds, they can come in, and if it's early in the day and they've just had their meds within the last hour or two, they're a complete zombie. And then you see them at the end of the day, and it's a totally different child who's conversational, interactive, sometimes bouncing off the walls, but is a different child. And of course, you know, I get the desire for function in school, but at the same time, you know, we're not made to be this way. So there has to be reasons why these kids are having these problems. And for those of you who've heard any of my videos in the past, I talk about a perfect storm workshop. And you know, when we do the perfect storm workshop, the goal is to go and educate moms and dads that there's underlying causes why kids are having these difficulties. And you know, you look at ADHD, sensory processing, all of these things, they call them neurodevelopmental disorders. And the key root word neuro means brain, central nervous system first, right? And so if you consider brain and nervous system first, then there's a problem with their nervous system's ability to adapt to the input of the environment coming in towards them. So part of what we take in the workshop and we do is we teach that the central nervous system, it uses two different divisions to interpret the world, right? There is what's called your parasympathetic, which is the rest, digest, growth, development, healing, and learning division of the nervous system. The other side is your stress response nervous system that's called the sympathetic. So your brain will have a different response to either side, right? When you're in learning mode, when you're in growth, development, healing mode, you have to really be very parasympathetic, because the parasympathetic system's job is to not just maintain the body, but it also helps us to maintain our logical centers in our brain, focus, attention, and control. When there is a shift where the fight or flight system has become the main controller, it creates a distortion to the body's ability to adapt, stay on focus, manage concentration, memory, attention, or even things like the ability to create proper speech, right? Apraxia. So, I work with a lot of folks that are in the OT world and in the PT world, and we talk about this stuff quite a bit, that the struggles these kids are having, the unfortunate thing is that the only thing that most people know about is medicines. But there's so many great alternatives to using medicine, right? There's things like neurofeedback, which is a tremendous job of helping a child's brain get trained to focus, right? There's occupational therapy, which is a great tool because what it does is it helps a child's brain and nervous system to learn the necessary skills and train it to become more efficient in staying in focus, dealing with sensory input, dealing with their environment, and actually teaching skills so that they can live better in their environment, right? So then you get to what I do. And so my goal as a chiropractor, because what we do is different than the other types of modalities, is we're not coming in and not teaching a skill set, right? We know that the underlying cause is a neurological problem of an inability to adapt to or accommodate to the nervous system, to the world. So what we're going to look at when we do an evaluation is, my job is to understand how the nervous system is stressed, how far it's gone down that road, and then we use adjustments to stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system, and over a process and a period of time, the brain starts to reorganize, refocus, and then concentration comes with, okay? So we watch kids who come in are at the far end of the spectrum. I get some of the worst of the worst of the worst, where these kids come in and they're an absolute disaster for their moms and dads. They're borderline ODD, oppositional defiant disorder. They're very aggressive, tons of issues with focus and control. Moms and dads don't know what to do, and they're saying, somebody's got to help me. And so they come into the office having looked down every road, with the exception of going on to meds, and in many cases have already gone down the meds road, just didn't like the effect on their children. So what we know is that the brain can be trained to stay calmer, which any of the roads that I've mentioned will always give a benefit, right? Some will take it all the way there, some won't, right? Depending upon what is going on with the child's nervous system. What we know is that you have to look at calming the child's nervous system down progressively so they can accommodate and adapt to the stress and stay focused so they don't need the medicines, okay? In my office here, we see kids that come in and with all of these different struggles, and my heart's bleed for you moms and dads that are dealing with this stuff. But I need you to understand that before you move down that road, you want to really understand that there's a lot of other options that are available that are, in the long term, corrective of their underlying problems, right? Because if the nervous system can't accommodate to the environment as a child, what's it going to be like for them as an adult? So if you look at how do I get the brain to change its function, normalize so they can handle the input of the environment, handle the stress and input of school, handle the pace, plus everything that they have to deal with during the course of their lifespan, if you can get those issues to calm down early and get their brain into a state where it's calm so it can have normal input, then the output, the result that you're going to see is that they're likely not going to need medicines. How great would that be if you're a mom and dad that you're struggling with your child and they're looking at having to be on meds, that all of a sudden you don't have to go down that road. And you never had to use a drug to get them there. Yeah, thank you very much for the like, by the way. I really appreciate that. Because I understand the struggles that you guys are going through. I see these kids. I deal with them. I love you guys for what you're doing, and I feel for you so much. But I need you to know that it's not the only road. There are other things that are tremendous benefits to kids. So I would encourage you that if you're considering going down that road, before you make a move to put your child on a medicine, investigate these other options first. Take them to a pediatric chiropractor that understands neurodevelopmental disorders. Take them to a pediatric PT. Take them to a pediatric OT. Get them in with folks that can help them to learn how to accommodate and to adapt to their environment. okay? Because you don't have to move down that road. Try neurofeedback. There's so many different great things that you can use, but make sure that what you're doing is you're trying all of your alternatives first before you go down the roads to the meds, because it's a slippery slope. They'll get used to being on the meds, and they will function for sure better for a little while, but just know that it's a slippery slope, because once they start on them, the likelihood of them ever feeling like they can function when they come off of them is really slim. And they have an increasing demand for that feeling of normalcy. If you're a mom and dad of a child with ADHD, you know what I'm talking about, right? If they take the meds, they're able to focus. They oftentimes probably don't like the way that they feel, but they do better. They're more compliant. They behave better in school. Their performance is better. The second they're off, different kid, right? But is that really the way that they want to live? Is that the way that you want them to live? Don't you want to know that there maybe is a way they can have a better quality of life without a medicine putting them there? I mean, moms and dads, ask yourself, how did we make to this point as a society, as a people, without using the meds before? We did it. We functioned in school. We found ways to go and make it. Things are different now than what they were, right? So we have a condition that's been diagnosed called ADHD. But you need to understand that they're still kids. We don't want to get them started onto drugs when there are other alternatives out there that they don't have to use, okay? So do me a favor. If you guys are curious about ways that you can look into getting your child the help that they need that doesn't require a med, then what I would tell you to do is, if you're in the Cleveland area, contact me. Be more than happy to have a conversation with you and talk to you about your child, okay? Our website address, www.elitehealthandwellness.net. If you're anywhere in the other parts of the country, go to www.thenwf.org. It's a resource site where there are doctors who know what I know, are trained in the way that I'm trained, where they can talk to you about what is going on with your child and have a conversation. Talk to you about strategies and things that you can do to improve your child's neurological function that prevent them from having to go down the roads of meds. All right? Because don't just take my word for it, do your own research, right? So drug usage rates are escalating at a scary pace. And so many of those kids you will find were kids that started by using Adderall and Abilify and Klonopin when they were in elementary school, middle school, high school, and they needed more and more stimulation to be able to function and focus, okay? So I sure will, Pollyanna. Thank you very much. I'll get that up there, okay? So I'm going to get out of here, guys. This is Dr. Scott out of here. God bless and be elite.